The first thing Haley ever said to me was, "You're blocking the copier." And just like that, my heart signed a lease in a place it shouldn't have. I'd been at Westbrook Marketing for 8 months, long enough to memorize the rhythm of the office. The smell of burnt coffee at 8 a.m., the hum of keyboards, and Haley Moore's heels clicking a cold, perfect beat across the floor. She wasn't just my senior. She was the company's untouchable ice queen, flawless, efficient, and devastatingly indifferent. Every word from her mouth was sharp enough to cut glass. Every glance felt like a rejection. But somehow I couldn't stop watching her, the way sunlight kissed the edge of her jaw during meetings, or how she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear when she was lost in thought. It was ridiculous. I was ridiculous. I told myself it was just admiration, respect, maybe envy. Anything but what it really was. But the truth had a cruel way of catching up with me, one tear at a time. That Tuesday started like any other. Emails, coffee, deadlines. Except this time I made a mistake. A big one. The client's campaign I'd been working on for 2 months, the one Haley trusted me with, had gone live with the wrong copy. One word. One damn word out of place, and suddenly our $50,000 deal was on the verge of collapse. I remember standing there, staring at the screen, my chest tightening. My throat felt like sandpaper. The office noise faded into a dull hum. Haley walked in, her eyes finding the mistake in seconds. "Who approved this?" she asked, voice calm, too calm. I opened my mouth, but the words trembled. I did. She exhaled, slow and sharp, like she was holding back a storm. "You were supposed to double-check it, Lena. We went over this." "I know. I'm sorry." Sorry doesn't fix what's already out there. And that was it. No yelling. No raised voice. Just that perfect, cutting tone that made me wish she had yelled. It would have hurt less. I spent the rest of the day pretending to work while my inbox exploded with crisis emails. Haley handled the fallout like she always did, composed, brilliant, untouchable. I watched her from across the room, her expression unreadable, her voice steady even when the team panicked. By the time everyone left, the office was quiet. Just the two of us. I sat there staring at my laptop screen, the cursor blinking on an empty document, and I couldn't take it anymore. The pressure. The failure. The way she looked at me or didn't. When Haley finally said, "You can go home, Lena," something inside me cracked. I stood up, but my voice came out before my thoughts did. "Do you ever even notice me?" She froze, turning slowly. "What?" My throat burned, and before I could stop it, tears were already spilling down my cheeks. "I work so hard, Haley. I try to be perfect because that's the only way you'll ever look at me. But you don't. You never do." The silence that followed was unbearable. The city lights flickered against the glass, reflecting my trembling figure back at me. Haley didn't move at first. Then, for the first time since I'd known her, her expression changed: confusion, guilt, maybe even something softer. She walked closer, her heels clicking quietly. "Lena, I didn't know you felt that way. How could you?" I laughed weakly through my tears. "You never let anyone close enough to feel anything." That one hit her. I saw it. A flash of pain in her eyes, gone almost as fast as it appeared. For a moment we just stood there, two people trapped in a silence heavy with everything unspoken. Then Haley did something I didn't expect. She reached out. Her fingers brushed away one of my tears, slow, almost hesitant. "You're shaking," she whispered. "I'm fine," I lied, though my voice cracked in the middle of the word. Her touch lingered. "You're not." That was when I realized she wasn't cold. She was terrified. The woman who never flinched in meetings, who could slice through egos like a scalpel, was looking at me like she'd never learned how to be gentle but desperately wanted to try. "Lena," she said quietly, "I'm sorry. It wasn't just about the campaign." I could hear it, the apology hidden inside every distance she'd ever put between us. The days that followed were strange. Different. Haley started leaving notes on my desk, small things like, "Good work on the client brief," or "Your presentation was solid today." She began to ask about my day, about my cat, even about the book I was reading. I didn't trust it at first. I thought maybe she felt guilty, or maybe it was pity. But then there were moments, fleeting, unguarded, when I caught her looking at me the way I used to look at her, like she was trying to memorize me, like she was afraid of what that meant. One evening, after another long day, I found her standing by the office window, the city lights painting her in gold and blue. "You're still here," I said softly. "So are you," she replied, half smiling. For once, the air between us wasn't sharp. It was quiet, safe. I leaned beside her, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from her arm. "You ever get tired of pretending?" I asked. She glanced at me, brows furrowed. "Pretending what?" "That nothing gets to you. That you don't care." Her lips parted, then closed again. "I thought caring made people weak." "It doesn't," I whispered. "It makes us human." Haley really looked at me, and in that moment, something in her eyes broke open. The ice melted. "I've been cold to you," she admitted, her voice barely above a breath. "Not because I wanted to be, but because you scare me." I blinked. "I scare you?" She nodded. "You make me feel things I don't know how to deal with." The city outside seemed to fade. All that was left was her trembling hand, the warmth in her eyes, the unspoken confession hanging between us. When she leaned in, it wasn't sudden or dramatic. It was gentle, uncertain. Her lips brushed mine like a question, and for the first time since I met her, Haley Moore didn't seem untouchable at all. The kiss lasted no longer than a heartbeat, a brief, trembling thing suspended between fear and longing. When Haley pulled away, she looked as though she'd broken a sacred rule, one she didn't even know she'd written. Her voice was quiet, almost apologetic. "I shouldn't have done that." My chest was still burning from the way her lips had brushed mine. "Why not?" She hesitated, eyes darting away. "Because it's complicated." I almost laughed. "Everything with you is complicated." Her lips parted, then closed again, like she wanted to argue but couldn't find the words. The silence stretched between us, thick and charged, until she finally said, "You should go home, Lena." I wanted to ask what that kiss meant. I wanted to demand an answer, a reason, anything to hold on to. But I didn't. I just nodded, gathered my things, and walked out before she could see the tears welling in my eyes again. That night, I lay awake replaying the moment over and over. The touch, the warmth, the way she looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. And then the way she shut herself down again just as fast. I hated that part. The next morning she acted like nothing had happened. No flicker of recognition. No change in tone. Just the same cold professionalism. The same Haley. It was almost impressive how she could build walls overnight. At lunch I caught her glance once, just once, when she thought I wasn't looking. But the moment I met her eyes, she turned away, pretending to read something on her tablet. By the end of the day I wasn't angry. Just tired. Tired of trying to decode someone who kept rewriting the rules. So I decided to stop waiting. I stopped lingering after meetings. I stopped volunteering for projects she led. I started sitting at a different table during lunch. I told myself it was self-respect, but if I was honest, it felt more like heartbreak dressed in logic. 2 weeks passed. And then came the Friday I didn't expect her to show up at my desk. "Got a minute?" she asked. Her tone wasn't cold, just uncertain. Caught me off guard. "Yeah," I said carefully. "Conference room 3. Please." It wasn't a request. Haley didn't do requests. I followed her down the hall, my stomach twisting. The room was empty, the blinds half closed, sunlight cutting sharp stripes across the table. Haley turned to face me. Her arms crossed, the posture of someone who needed armor but didn't know where to find it. "I owe you an explanation," she said. I blinked. "For what?" Her jaw tightened. "For what happened that night. And for how I've been since." I stayed silent. I wanted her to talk. She drew in a slow breath. "You were right. I don't let people close. Not because I don't care, but because caring has always gone wrong for me." There was something raw in her voice I hadn't heard before. "When I was in college," she continued, eyes fixed on the window, "I fell in love with someone I worked with. She was brilliant, kind, everything I wasn't. I thought she felt the same, but when things got difficult, she left. It nearly wrecked my career, and I promised myself I'd never mix work and feelings again." She finally looked at me. "Then you came along." I swallowed hard. "Haley, no," she said softly, shaking her head. "Let me finish. You made me forget that promise. You made me feel again. And I didn't know how to deal with it, so I did what I always do, I pushed you away." My throat tightened. And the kiss. Her lips curved in a small, sad smile. That was me losing control for the first time in years. There it was, honesty bare and trembling between us. I took a step closer. You didn't lose control, Haley. You let yourself be human. She blinked fast like she was fighting tears. Maybe. But I don't know how to be that person again. Then let me help you, I said, voice barely above a whisper. For a second she just looked at me searching. Maybe for proof that I meant it. Then she exhaled slowly, shoulders dropping. Why do you care so much? She asked. Because despite everything I see you. The real you. That broke her. I saw it in her eyes the moment her defenses cracked, the tension in her shoulders dissolving. Haley stepped forward, close enough that I could feel her breath. You're not supposed to make me feel this way. Too late, I said, smiling faintly. We're already here. She let out a small, shaky laugh. God, you drive me insane. Good, I said. You deserve to feel something real. And when she kissed me again, really kissed me this time, it wasn't hesitant or unsure. It was desperate, aching, full of everything she'd been holding back. Her hand slid around my waist, pulling me close, and I could feel the tension unravel between us. I kissed her back, all the anger and confusion melting into something softer, truer. When we finally broke apart, she whispered, I don't know what happens next. I smiled, breathless. Maybe we stop pretending we don't want this. The weeks that followed felt like walking a tightrope between love and disaster. At work we kept our distance. We had to. Westbrook was strict about relationships between employees, especially between supervisors and subordinates. But outside the office, that was another story. We started seeing each other quietly, late-night coffees, walks in Central Park after everyone else had gone home, stolen hours in her apartment where she wasn't the ice queen anymore. In private, Haley was softer. She laughed easily, teased me, let herself be vulnerable in small ways that made my heart ache. She told me about her childhood in Boston, about how she'd built her career from nothing, about her fear of losing control. I told her about my dreams to one day lead a creative team, to write something that mattered. She said she believed I could. We were careful but not careful enough. One morning when we walked into the office separately but a few minutes too close together, I noticed a look from our coworker, Janet Sharp, curious, suspicious. By lunchtime the whispers had started. Haley and Lena? No way. Come on, she's way out of her league. Maybe that's how Lena got the new client pitch. The gossip stung, but worse was the way Haley started to pull back again. She avoided eye contact during meetings. Her emails became colder, shorter. When I texted her at night, the replies came slower, then stopped altogether. I knew what was happening. She was retreating into that fortress again. A week later, she called me into her office. Her expression was professional, detached. I hated it instantly. Close the door, please, she said. I did. Haley, what's going on? She didn't look up from her laptop. There's been talk around the office. I think it's best if we create some space. The words hit harder than I expected. Space? You mean between us? She finally looked up. Her eyes were cold again. Yes. Because of rumors? I demanded. Because of my position, she said firmly. I can't afford for people to think I'm showing favoritism. I felt my stomach drop. So what we have, it's just a liability to you now? Her silence said enough. I took a step back, heart pounding. I thought you were different, Haley. I thought you finally let someone in. She flinched just slightly. Lena, no, I said, shaking my head. Don't Lena me. You can't kiss me like that. Tell me you care. Then pretend none of it matters. Her voice softened. You don't understand what's at stake. Maybe not. But I understand what it's like to be scared. And I'm not running this time. I waited for her to say something, anything. But she just sat there, hands folded, eyes blank. That silence, that was the real goodbye. I left before she could see me break again. The next few days blurred together. Work became unbearable. Every meeting, every hallway, every coffee break, her presence was everywhere. But so was the distance. I threw myself into projects, stayed late just to avoid thinking about her. But the ache wouldn't go away. Until one night when I got a call from Janet. Hey, just a heads up, she said. The board's reviewing Haley's department performance reports. Someone filed a complaint about favoritism. They're looking into it. My blood ran cold. Do they know? No one's mentioned names yet. But if they dig deep enough. I hung up before she could finish. My chest tightened. I knew instantly what Haley was trying to do, protect me by cutting me off. She wasn't being cold. She was taking the hit alone. And suddenly everything made sense, the distance, the silence, the way she pushed me away. I didn't think. I just went. It was raining hard when I reached her apartment, sheets of water pounding against the city. I was soaked by the time she opened the door. Her eyes widened. Lena, what are you? You're not doing this alone, I said, stepping inside. She stared at me, speechless. I know about the investigation, I continued. And I know you're trying to protect me. But this isn't your burden to carry. Her shoulders slumped, and for the first time in weeks, she looked utterly defeated. I didn't want you dragged into this, she whispered. I can handle it. No, you can't, I said, voice breaking. You shouldn't have to. You don't have to keep proving you're unbreakable. Haley. Not to them. Not to me. She looked at me for a long moment, her eyes glistening. I don't know how to let people help me. Then let this be the first time you learn. Her lip trembled. What if it costs me everything? Then at least you won't lose yourself. That was when she broke. The tears she'd been holding back for years finally fell, silent and unstoppable. I reached for her, and she didn't resist. She melted into me, arms wrapping tight around my waist, face buried against my shoulder. For a long time, neither of us said anything. Just the sound of rain, our breaths, the quiet understanding that real love wasn't about safety. It was about surrender. Later, as we sat on her couch wrapped in a blanket, she whispered, You shouldn't have come. I smiled faintly. You knew I would. She let out a soft laugh, the first in days. Yeah, I guess I did. Outside, the rain began to fade into a soft drizzle. Inside, her hand found mine. For once, neither of us pulled away. Maybe tomorrow would bring consequences. Maybe the rumors would grow. Maybe we'd have to fight harder than we ever had. But in that quiet moment, with the city glowing faintly beyond her window and the warmth of her fingers laced through mine, it didn't matter. Because for the first time since this began, Haley wasn't running and I wasn't crying. We were simply there. Together. The next morning felt unreal, too calm, too bright for what was coming. Haley made coffee while I sat on her couch, still wrapped in the same blanket from last night. She moved quietly, her usual precision softened by something almost tender. When she handed me a mug, her hand brushed mine. They called me in for a board meeting this afternoon. I nodded. You're going to tell them the truth? She hesitated. That I broke policy. It could cost me my position. Maybe, I said softly. But lying would cost you more. She looked at me for a long time, her dark eyes searching my face. You're braver than I am, you know that? I smiled faintly. No. I just finally learned from you, sometimes you fight even when you're terrified. Her lips curved in a small, tired smile. You're impossible. Only with you. By the time she left for the office, the sky had turned gray again, like the city itself was holding its breath. I wanted to go with her, to stand beside her, but she asked me not to. Let me do this, she'd said. For us. Those words, for us, were the only thing keeping me steady. Hours passed. I couldn't focus on anything. Every sound from my phone made my pulse spike. Every minute felt longer than the last. Finally, around 4 p.m., there was a knock at my apartment door. When I opened it, Haley stood there, drenched, breathless, and smiling in a way I'd never seen before. They didn't fire me, she said, laughing through the rain. They reassigned me to another branch. Boston. A fresh start. I blinked. Boston? That's amazing. She nodded, but her smile faltered just slightly. There's one condition. They want me there next week. It took a moment for the words to sink in. Next week. I know. Her voice was gentle, almost apologetic. I told them I'd think about it. My heart sank. You're really considering staying here? Her gaze softened. Lena, I can't ask you to uproot your life for me. I stepped closer. You're not asking. I'm offering. She laughed, shaking her head. You don't even like snow. Then I'll learn to, I said simply. She stared at me for a long silent moment, then exhaled, voice trembling. "You'd really come?" "Yes," I whispered. "Because you're my home now." The following week was a blur, resigning from my job, packing up the tiny apartment that had once felt like everything and now felt like nothing without her. Haley helped me carry boxes, her usual precision giving way to chaotic laughter as we tripped over cables and half-taped cartons. For someone who used to live by control, she looked freer than ever, messy hair, sleeves rolled up, smiling at nothing in particular. On our last night in New York, we stood on the rooftop of her building, watching the skyline glow against the dark. "Do you think we're doing the right thing?" I asked. She slipped her hand into mine. "I think for once, I'm not running from what I want." "And what do you want?" Her eyes met mine, steady and warm. "You. Just you." Boston greeted us with cold air and open skies. The snow was still thin on the ground, but the air smelled like something new, like possibility. Haley's new office was smaller, quieter, more personal. There were no whispered rumors, no board members watching every move. Just her, a small team, and a fresh beginning. We found an apartment near the Charles River, small but bright, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a kitchen big enough for the two of us to bump elbows while cooking. The first morning there, I woke to find her standing by the window, coffee in hand, wearing one of my oversized sweaters. "You look ridiculous in that," I teased. She turned, smiling sleepily. "It smells like you." "I like it." Something in my chest melted. "You've changed." She shrugged lightly. "Maybe I just stopped pretending." Life didn't suddenly become perfect. We still argued about dishes, deadlines, whose turn it was to buy groceries. But underneath all of it was a quiet, certain warmth that had never existed before. Some nights, when she couldn't sleep, she'd rest her head on my shoulder and whisper things she'd never dared to say out loud, fears, hopes, memories. And every time, I'd remind her she didn't have to face them alone anymore. One evening, months later, we went for a walk along the river. The sky was streaked with pink and gold, the city lights shimmering in the distance. Haley stopped suddenly and turned to me. "Do you ever think about that first day we met?" I laughed. "When you told me I was blocking the copier?" Her grin was soft, almost shy. "Yeah, I think that was the moment my life got complicated." I squeezed her hand. "And better." She nodded. "And better." When spring finally came, our apartment filled with sunlight and quiet laughter. I found myself writing again, stories about second chances, about love that blooms where it shouldn't but does anyway. Haley would read my drafts at night, glasses sliding down her nose, pretending not to smile at the parts one knew made her blush. One evening, she closed my notebook and looked at me thoughtfully. "You ever going to write about us?" I leaned against her shoulder. "I already am." She tilted her head. "And how does it end?" I smiled, closing my eyes. "Like this." Her fingers brushed against mine. "Happy. Real," I whispered. "Which is better?" She kissed me, then slow, tender, certain, the kind of kiss that didn't ask questions anymore. Later, as we lay tangled beneath the fading light, I thought about how strange it all was, how something that began with indifference and silence had turned into this quiet, undeniable love. The woman who once ignored me now traced constellations across my skin with her fingertips. The one who feared emotion now whispered, "I love you," like it was the most natural thing in the world. And me, the girl who used to cry behind office doors, now laughed, unafraid, in the arms of the person who once made her feel invisible. Sometimes love doesn't arrive gently. Sometimes it breaks you open just to show you who you really are. Haley once told me she didn't believe in fate. I think she does now. Because every night when she holds me close and murmurs, "I see you," I know she means more than just the words. She means I finally learned how to love. And I whisper back, "I know. Me too." Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.